Tips with Toni. Tips with Toni. All about nutrition from your favorite dietitian. Everything you need to digest in your mind. Tips with Toni. Tips with Toni. Making you healthier one bite at a time. With Toni. Woo.
Hello and welcome to the Tips with Toni podcast. I'm Toni Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time. So I'm not sure how many of you know what I've been experiencing this year. It depends if you're new to the podcast, and if you are, welcome. I encourage you to go back and listen to old episodes, and if you are an old-time listener, thank you so much. I cannot express my appreciation enough for you. But as you guys know, if you've been listening to my story, in the beginning of this year, I was diagnosed with Epstein Barr, and it caused me to have extreme fatigue, and I just was not well. I was not well at all. I recently found out I've also been very bloated all of the time. So unnatural. I already follow a gluten-free diet because of my history of bloating and migraines, and I'm committed to doing gluten-free because I just feel so much better. And ever since then, I've had very little bloating. And so for me to have bloating constantly all of the time, it was very confusing for me, and I knew something else was wrong. I knew that it wasn't technically related to the Epstein Barr, although it could have been because Epstein Barr is a virus that kind of just wreaks havoc on the body. So it was possible, and I kind of just let it go, and I thought, all right, let me fix the Epstein Barr before I can, figure out what else is going on. But it just got really bad. So anyways, long story short, I met with a doctor, and actually Dr. Kochko, if you didn't listen to that episode, Dr. Kochko has helped me a ton in uncovering a lot of the underlying issues and reasons behind the symptoms of what I've been experiencing. And I got tested for SIBO. So SIBO is short for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So basically there's certain bacteria that's going into the large intestines where it's not supposed to, and supposed to stay in the small intestines, and it's creating things like bloating, distension. For some people, it causes flatulence. For me, it was a lot of abdominal pain. For others, it causes constipation or even diarrhea. But I didn't experience those. I was just having extreme bloating, so uncomfortable. No matter what I ate, it was really, really not great. So I have been prescribed supplements, and I'm just going to kind of teach you guys, please don't self-diagnose. If you think you have SIBO, you would want to do, it's a breath test. You have to fast for it. You obviously need guidance from your doctor. I spoke with Dr. Kochko. He's a naturopathic physician. I believe in using both Western medicine and maybe some non-traditional approaches. So this is what we have come up with together, and I have supplements that I'm taking, which are basically going to restore. I don't have enough what's called the intrinsic factor of hydrochloric acid, which, sorry guys if this is way over your head, but this is kind of the science of nutrition, and you don't need to know this. All you need to know is what I'm about to tell you. But I'm taking these supplements, which are going to restore and help break down the foods that are going through my system and hopefully restore my gut bacteria, to help me digest more. All that to say, in addition, it's also recommended to follow a low FODMAP diet. So you've probably heard of FODMAPs before, and if you haven't, I'm going to explain to you what that is. So FODMAPs is an acronym that stands for fermentable oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols. And FODMAPs are basically short-chain carbohydrates, sugar molecules that are rapidly fermented and poorly absorbed in the gut. And so when you consume certain foods and you have something like SIBO, or irritable bowel syndrome, it's usually recommended by a doctor or a gastroenterologist to consume a low FODMAP diet. Now, there are some people that say that they actually do benefit from this, and there are other people that say that they don't. I'm really more of a dietitian that believes in the less restrictive, the better. And the FODMAP diet is very restrictive. And I want to just be clear that it's not something to follow for a lifetime. It is specifically intended to be used as a treatment temporarily until you can figure out what foods trigger your irritable bowel syndrome or until you're fully healed from SIBO while also taking the supplements. I know a lot of people that are experiencing a lot of bloating. A lot of my clients, believe it or not, come to me with this. And rather than going straight to a low FODMAP diet, I usually have them take out the heavy hitters, which is things like gluten and lactose, added sugars, maybe even soy sometimes, and see if that helps. And a lot of the time, they tend to feel much better as a result. And so then, therefore, we don't have to go through the whole low FODMAP diet, because things that are high in FODMAPs are things like garlic and onion and cruciferous vegetables, so bulky veggies and certain fruits, and it's very restrictive. And so now you're trying to be healthy, so you want to eat more fruits and vegetables, but more than half of the fruits and vegetables are high in FODMAPs and your body can't absorb them. So it can become very restrictive, very frustrating. Going out to eat is very challenging. If you think about how restaurants flavor their foods, it's like garlic and onion, and it's really, really difficult to follow. Which is why it's strongly advised to do it under the care and supervision of a registered dietitian. Because when you don't do that, you might be restricting foods, you might be causing a more negative relationship with food, and it might trigger you to just go, completely off track, or it might feel like you don't know what to do. And trust me when I tell you guys, as a registered dietitian, even with this knowledge, I actually had to purchase a book to kind of re-up my education about this diet and to remind myself that, okay, although this is like what I needed to follow, I also need to be lenient and incorporate it in my daily life. And at this point, I've been so bloated that even if I'm just a little bit less bloated, that's going to be better and that's going to be an improvement. So I'm going to explain to you a little bit more about the FODMAP diet, but in general, I strongly advise talking with a professional who can help you through this, because you might not need to restrict certain things. So let me first, just by explaining the process, for the first 2 to 6 weeks, you want to do the low FODMAP diet. And then the next 6 to 8 weeks, you want to slowly reintroduce certain foods to identify your triggers. And then you want to create what's called an adapted diet. So basically creating your own version of those foods and knowing what your limits are. And that's exactly what I do in my nutrition coaching program, whether it be with someone who's experiencing bloating or someone who's just trying to figure out, what foods fit best for their lifestyle. And we try to really take a look at the diet as a whole and be smart about what's worth keeping in and what's worth restricting. So I'm going to just quickly kind of explain to you certain foods. If you feel like you might be experiencing a little bloating, you might want to try to limit these items. I'm going to kind of list a few off, but please, by any means, if you're listening to this and you're just thinking you're going to do low FODMAPs to lose weight or because you think it's healthy, that is not the case. This is a intervention, a medical nutrition therapeutic diet that dietitians are help to prescribe in a clinical setting or an outpatient setting because there's a root cause. So if you suspect that you have something like SIBO or irritable bowel syndrome, you want to make sure that you go to a doctor and get a clear diagnosis before you just kind of waste your time, restrict, and potentially create more of a negative relationship with food and more confusion. So basically some things that are going to be irritant to the stomach that might not even necessarily be a FODMAP thing is just alcohol in general. So this has been really hard for me, guys. I'm not an alcoholic by any means, but I do love wine. And I love socializing, and I like getting just this past weekend, I was in Philadelphia with my friends, and I drink every night because I haven't seen them in a while. And I enjoy it. I enjoy a couple cocktails on a Friday, Saturday night. And so, I understand that choosing that behavior might resort into a little bit of bloating the next day. But in general, if you're really inflamed, there has been times where my stomach now I'm kind of on the end of healing. In the beginning, it was so bad, so bloated that alcohol to me, I literally couldn't stomach it. It would just make everything worse. So be mindful of that. So FODMAPs are present in some wines and ciders. Alcohol is an irritant, and you want to limit your intake. Restrict your intake of sticky wine, low GI wine, and rum if you do not tolerate fructose. So I just also want to let you guys know I'm reading directly from the Monash University Low FODMAP Diet Guide. So Monash is Monash University. They also have an app, but I actually bought the book because I found the app slightly confusing. And this book has been like my resource to just to kind of check the heavy hitters, the things that I want to avoid. So foods containing sorbitol, high sorbitol foods are apples, apricots, blackberries, pears, nectarines, peaches, plums, artificial sweeteners like sorbitol, mannitol, and I can't even say these words. And I've always been that person when I was in school to become a dietitian. When we got to the pharmacology part, like I could never pronounce medications. I'm really bad, but I can read it and know what it is. So with that, you want to moderate your sorbitol foods. You want to limit the avocado to about 1/4 per day. Cherries, no more than 3. So it's really interesting where there's going to be like, you can have these foods, but if you have more than half of an avocado, you might have a lot of stomach problems. And to be honest, guys, for me, I love avocado so much, and this was something that actually did trigger me. So I had to go from, instead of having a half of an avocado, I would just do 1/4 of an avocado like on my salad. Foods that contain mannitol are cauliflower, mushrooms, snow peas, peaches, and watermelon. So you would want to also limit your intake of things like celery and sweet potato. Also things that I consume. However, for me, sweet potatoes are completely fine. They don't bother me at all. Celery, I do notice that when I have a little bit extra, my stomach is a little bit more bloated. So you notice that some of these foods on here, like I can have pears, no problem. Apples, I can have a small apple. I just can't have a large apple. So some of these things I'm going to note, my stomach feels well with. So if I eliminated all of these foods, I would not be okay. I would feel like I had nothing to eat and there'd be almost no purpose because I'm not experiencing any issues with it. So foods that contain fructose, asparagus, artichokes, sugar snap peas, apples. So a lot of them are all of the different things. So this is why apples tend to be a big trigger for most people. Like I said, I can have a small one, but I have a large one. I tend to be more bloated. Figs, dried fruit, fruit bars, mango, fruit in their natural juice, watermelon, high fructose corn syrup, honey, and tropical juices. Even things like an asparagus are on there as well. Foods that contain fructans, garlic, onion, artichoke, barley, wheat pasta, and banana. Pomegranate, you can tolerate in small amounts, and grapefruit. Foods containing lactose, cow's milk, condensed milk, yogurt, custard, evaporated milk, ice cream, cream cheese, and ricotta can be consumed in smaller amounts. Foods containing GOS, G-O-S, butter beans, green beans, pistachios, cashews, custard, apples, soy milk made from whole soybeans, oat milk, chickpeas, butternut pumpkin, 1/2 cup. And I do notice for me, I was having like butternut soup, and it was really great because I also got sick during this process. Because you guys, I'm a hot mess. Epstein Barr lowers your immune system. When your gut's not functioning, you're difficult to absorb nutrients. So I was like always getting sick, and I was like obsessed with this butternut squash soup that they had on the corner of my apartment. So I didn't have to go anywhere. I could just pick it up, and I had that for a little bit. And I noticed when I overdid it, it started to bother me. So those are just some certain foods that to be mindful of. I will just say, I just wanted to give you, this book is fabulous. If you want to order the book, I believe I paid, I don't remember, either $10 or maybe $20, but it's definitely worth it, especially if you're someone who is experiencing issues with your gut. There is an entire low FODMAP diet where it actually tells you the serving size. So typically people who are having issues with their stomach, especially something like diarrhea, they want to avoid fiber. But once your gut is fine and you're no longer having those issues with diarrhea, you want to introduce fiber because it will support your gut and it will actually help with your bowel movements over time. So there's a whole list of different vegetables and fruits that are safe to consume that are going to help you get up to the recommended amount of 25 to 30 grams of fiber per day. There's also in the back really great low FODMAP recipes. So, and it'll be interesting to see, like, in the recipe book, you'll have things like, here, I just pulled it up, tuna and sweet potato patties. And it's like, we just said that sweet potato could be considered a FODMAP food that could trigger your stomach. However, if you have it in small amounts and you use, in here it has gluten-free flour and gluten-free breadcrumbs, and you're just using a very little bit of the potato and the most of it is the tuna, then you're going to be fine. So if you've noticed, a lot of the FODMAP foods are in the carbohydrate-rich foods. So that's where sometimes they'll do like a low-carb diet and they feel better. And that could be more related to there might be something underlying going on in your gut. So I wanted to give you guys just a very general info session about this. If you have any specific questions, if you suspect that there's something going on, please do not hesitate to message me, tipswithtoni@gmail.com. Send me an email and let me know. Like I said, I just want to do a brief overview. If you suspect something seriously going on, definitely talk to your doctor. Let me know about where you're at in your journey with your FODMAPs, and if you want further guidance, you feel free to ask. So I want to wrap this up. This is a little bit longer of one of my solo episodes. They're usually less than 10 minutes. I'm not sure what we're on time-wise here, but I have a feeling we went over 10 minutes. So thank you guys so much for listening. If this resonated with you, if this was helpful for you at all, please screenshot the episode, share it up on your story, and tag me and let me know. And if you're not already subscribed to the Tips with Toni podcast, please subscribe. A new episode comes out every Monday and every Wednesday. And when you subscribe, you won't miss a beat. All right, guys, thanks so much for listening. As always, this is Toni Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time.